Welcome to Standing Up. I see the one-state solution as, in many ways, a great solution, the best solution, because it seems like one of the issues with the two-state solution is both people want access to the entirety of the land. Nobody wants to give up half. One-state
No.
solution seems to solve that. I'll tell you my personal concerns about a one-state solution, and I know many Israelis share this concern with me. It has something to do with the demographic issue. Now, many Israelis are
Right.
concerned for their security once Palestinians, let's say one day Palestinians become a majority.
Mhm.
Will we still be safe? That's one question. The other comes down to social issues. So I think Israel is already potentially in danger with the progression of social issues because our fastest growing population is the Hasidic Jewish community.
Right.
And when it comes to social issues, they're quite regressive, at least regressive compared to how I want a country to be socially.
Mhm.
The Hasidic Jews' view on social issues is more in line with Palestinians than they are in line with how I see the world. So,
Right.
I'm a secular Jewish liberal.
Mhm.
I'm not confident that Israel will be a liberal democratic state in 50
No.
years
Right.
under a one-state solution. So that really is my biggest concern, and I don't have any way around that aside from perhaps a federation solution, which is one state, one country with multiple smaller states inside, and the local communities get to govern their local states, similar to what we have in Switzerland or the European Union. People have compared it to that as well.
Well,
What are
look, there's something you have to bring up. First of all, the emergence of Hamas. Look, when I first got married in the 90s and the first Intifada, no women covered. And it was a joke if you were religious. This is all new. This is all within the past 20 years. Go back and look at pictures from Intifada 1 and go back and look at everything post-Intifada 2 and look at the women and look how it's changed. The PLO was absolutely secular. Even in, let's say, I don't know what you'd call the camps, because we have a lot of family who grew up in the camps, and I'm talking about Lebanon. So you had these little microcosms of Palestinian society, and they were as secular as they can be. Even Sharia was taken over by the PLO. So they had totally obliterated. So when two people wanted to get married, they would go to their to the general who was of their area, either PFLP or Fatah. So the society that we had known evolved, and it evolved into a secular society. Then it regressed, and this is how I see this emerging religious parts that's coming. There is a type of regression. It does have a lot to do with despair that both sides are having. And I think if people are offered hope, they'll move away from that. I mean, look at me, a Shi'ari here in Jerusalem. It used to be this big. Now it's like this whole area. Places where I used to shop, they took it over.
Right.
Y'all have the burqas, the burqa Jews now, the women who cover their whole face. Those are all over the place. Who would have thunk? Who'd have thunk 20 years ago? If you told someone that, they'd be like, impossible. That would never happen in Jewish society.
Right. So
I mean, you're right. Point. I don't know. For me, I think it has to go back to, but y'all's religious are a little bit different than ours. Ours, y'all have the suck thing and the dress. Ours aren't as detectable, but another phenomenon of this thing is Islamic schools. We never had those before. 20 years before, never. Everybody thought you were nuts if you told them I was going to send my kid to an Islamic school.
Right. So really what you're saying is that fear and despair fuel radicalization, not only political radicalization, but also religious radicalization.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because people, and then I don't understand how you're going to come up with a two-state solution. Yeah, okay, y'all want us to get away from you. We're everywhere. We're in
Hmm.
your hospitals, we're in your homes. I mean, we're your black labor force.
Right.
I mean, we're also your doctors, we're your pharmacists. So
Right.
I don't know how y'all get. I know Sharon tried in Intifada too. They were importing all these Asians, but the problem is that when y'all start importing work, the money starts going out, and Israel can't afford that. So employing us is a lot more beneficial. I mean, if I look at it as an Israeli,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
because our disposable income goes back in the Israeli economy.
Right. And I mean, even more so, I still haven't found a way to separate that doesn't just cause immense harm into one population or another. It's like uprooting people from their homes, not giving people access to sites that they view holy, not letting people travel freely to their families. These are things that are demoralizing, they're dehumanizing, they cause immense pain and suffering. Um, and I've yet to hear a good solution for how to solve that.
See, another thing I've been thinking, if you don't mind,
Sure.
you see, the Jewish religion, we don't understand it, and there's a lapse in Revelation, more or less. For y'all, this is heaven. Basically, the Jewish religion does not have the whole idea of heaven or the afterlife, and that's why Jews feel more or less like from what I understand, the mitzvahs and certain religious observances can only happen here or should happen here. Uh, we do not understand that at all. Um, and the other thing is that it scares the hell out of us because it gives y'all it it has given the Jews in their eyes license over what we own, and we've never been able to discuss that or come to terms about it, because we
Yeah,
have totally different views
right.
or beliefs about it.
I wouldn't be the best person to ask about this.
Neither am I.
Yeah,
But you see that those are things that need to be talked about, and
for
nobody
sure.
brings it,
For sure. Yeah.
and nobody's talking about it. And I think it would diffuse a lot because honestly, even though I am an observant Muslim, I'm highly skeptical of the type of Islamicism that is coming about, because it's not focused on the things that I know that are our foundations, and like you said, I think they're more focused on fear, and like
Yeah. I
so.
I recently saw an more interesting polling about
Mhm.
percentage of populations that support Sharia as the law of the nation, and it was fascinating to see the difference between countries. So,
Mhm.
there's this narrative that Muslims will just always be regressive, that they just, they all want Sharia, they don't support rights for women or gays.
Mhm.
When you look at the Middle East, there's a lot of evidence to support those notions as well. But when you look at countries and their support for Sharia, one of the highest nations that support Sharia is the Palestinian nation. It was something like 89%. In Lebanon, it was like 29%. And in Uzbekistan, it was like 7%. So this just
Mhm.
shows that it's not about being Muslim that makes you support one view or another, because there's so much diversity and vastly different opinions within the Islamic community. But it seems like the environment that these Muslims are living in is what
Mhm.
really affects their many of their religious views. And that's quite fascinating. And it really shows that if we can build an environment that is safer, that gives people hope, that's more inclusive, then I think there is a very strong case to make that um, we can have less radical Islamicism, as you said. Um, yeah, that actually gives me hope.
Mhm.
Um, do you think that? So, would you think it's fair to say that the progression of social issues in Palestine is affected by the fact that that Palestinians are living under an occupation.
Oh, absolutely. There's a social issue. Look, I don't think we entered the modern age through the occupation. Because before 48, you can say we were basically how everything had been from Jesus till the Ottomans.
I'm listening. I
And
just
then,
plugged my phone in. Sorry.
Okay. And then from there, so basically, and we never really had a transition phase. So with social issues, I think they've been put more or less on the back burner for political issues.
I'll be back with you in a minute.
Okay.
Technical stuff. Okay. So I see that we only have 8 minutes left. So
Yes.
we have maybe one more topic to touch on. So
You were talking about social issues are a huge thing. But look, let me put it, in the resistance, in the PLO, it did free up a lot of things. You have two totally we have been able to tackle them and we haven't, because there's also the whole struggle for survival and existence. So, I don't know. I mean, I think with the emergence of, when I'm comparing with the emergence of the Islamic movement, okay, here's the thing. When I first got married, weddings were mixed gender. Now they're not. There's now when you go to weddings, people will ask, is it mixed gender or is it separated, or is it separated? And a lot of people will not attend because now, I mean, this is the thing. There was a quote unquote fatwa that it's haram to go to a place where males and females mix. And now this is the majority.
and
Well, my wedding, this is a huge thing, especially for the Palestinian. The Palestinian wedding is such a huge part of our culture, and it's something you look forward to. The whole community participates in.
right.
It's never been segregated. So there are issues and they are becoming under the guise of Islamic values, where they keep separating and base it in the misogyny, and it has nothing to do with Islam. Basically the covering, most places, now I don't cover. So it's affected a lot. And then Sharia law being accepted again, majority Sunni population, and that's all they're taking in school. So they think that's the way to go.
Right.
And the Islamics are really good about literature. They print up stuff like crazy. Nobody else does it like them.
It's actually similar with Jewish religious people as well. They're very good at outreach and having literature and handing it out. Even there's this,
and the posters.
posters. Yeah, there's this guy for years. I see him. You leave a nightclub in Tel Aviv, he's there handing out books to, these.
Bring you on the straight path.
Yeah. I'd leave a club and he's like, "Hey, you want this?" I'm like, "No, thank you, but have a great night." But yeah, he sees it. These are secular people, deviants. I look at them at the club drinking, having fun. Right. So he sees that as an effective form of outreach. I personally have no issue with that because it's not harmful, it's not aggressive. But the more, I think one of the downsides we've seen in social media is really the increase in our ability to communicate cross borders, but that has a downside that people are radicalizing one another through social media as well. So,
absolutely.